All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Up on TSN 4, Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star in here. Thursday afternoon. How are we feeling?
Feeling good, even though JP sewered me yesterday and lied.
Oh, really?
I was thinking about a new segment. Instead of HP sauce, JP sauce, where he comes in with a hot take and we toss it around. There's something there. We can grow with it and make something happen.
Yeah.
With JP sauce.
JP sauce. So how did he lie to you, though? Explain that.
Well, remember when I asked for confirmation, and thank you to the listener that sent in the tweet saying, O-Dog did talk about an amateur possibly winning a major. It was last year at the Masters when Sam Bennett was in the hunt. And that brought back my recollection,
yeah.
My recollection of the moment, and that's when it was. So
okay.
JP, although stiffed me yesterday because I said, JP, do you remember that? He goes, oh, dog, you didn't say that.
Well, and then apparently the grappler said something, and then JP had second thoughts because the grappler's a man of authority around here, so he...
No. The grappler is JP's boss.
Yeah, that's right. So, JP's got to be careful there. But I don't know. It seemed fairly convenient that some random egg avatar decided out of nowhere that
avatar.
Just joined Twitter yesterday.
Find the post.
Just joined Twitter yesterday, Dave. All of a sudden remembers the O-Dog saying something.
There it is. Look at this.
Johnny.
Sean Lavino. I love you, Lavino.
Yeah.
O-Dog did say that an amateur will win a major soon.
Yeah.
He said it when Sam Bennett was contending at
That's
the Masters.
exactly what my dummy account would be. Something like that. John Iovino. That's exactly what, if I had a burner account, that is what it would be, right? Because it seems like a totally normal name, and absolutely that's a real person.
Totally.
Of course it is.
One thing that got my attention today, though, guys, and I think it's gotten to a level of, it's disgusting. The firings in the NFL, it's like, has it always been like this, or has it just gotten out of hand the last 3 to 4 years? Because guys are getting tossed, and it's gotten a little bit ridiculous. Like, isn't it insane? Every day an offensive coordinator gassed. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nonstop. Between that and college and coaches moving around, Dave. I mean, I guess in the NFL, like, I just feel like they make so much money that the owners, it's a clerical error. Like, they don't even care. It's very inhumane. It's like, that's not working. You have to go. You're fired. But the amount of turnover, it's probably about 25% of the league. About 8 head coaches every single year. There's probably, 10 to 15 coordinators, if not more than that. Probably more than that. Maybe 20, 25 coordinators every single year, and it just filters out.
But O-Dog,
that's the way it goes.
It is. It's always been like this, but, it is a carousel. Most of the guys that get fired, they land somewhere else. It's not like they're on, it's not like they're on the unemployment line, never to work again.
I do get that, but it also seems like it's a part of the players are not the problem ever. And darn you if you think it's the players' problem. It's like the players are, look at what just happened in Milwaukee, Feschuk.
Well, that's a good example.
That guy was 30-13.
Yeah.
And Giannis and company probably went behind his back and told the ownership, you know what? I don't know if this is the guy that's going to get us over the finish line, so you better gas him. Like, you would have to think that type of conversation would happen.
Well, now Giannis is saying he loved Adrian Griffin.
Oh,
right?
give me a break, dude.
Right.
And I made me sick last night, that dance they were doing pregame. It was like, we got the coach fired. We got the coach fired.
I agree.
And they were boogieing at center court. I'm like, you guys are disgusting, man.
They won last night. They beat Cleveland, and that's 31 wins. And now Doc Rivers is going to be there. And Doc Rivers is a long-standing, very good coach in the NBA. But if you're Adrian Griffin, you just must be... Like, they're going to go win a championship now, and it's going to be so difficult for him to digest that.
No, they're not.
You don't think Milwaukee's going to win?
No.
Not even close?
No, because...
How many teams in the NBA are better than Milwaukee?
Tell us why, Feschuk.
Well,
Tell us why.
It's very clear why, guys. I mean, this is not about coaching. This team is flawed to the core. This team cannot play defense, and it's not about the guy writing the X's and O's. It's the proverbial Jimmies and the Joes, or the Dames, who are playing matador defense. They traded their best perimeter defender in Drew Holiday for a guy that can't play defense on the perimeter in Damian Lillard. And they not only did they trade, to get Lillard and move out Drew Holiday, they somehow allowed Drew Holiday to land on one of their biggest rivals in Boston.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
fun.
just, when I talk to NBA executives about that one, now you can't put a provision in legally that says I'm trading this guy away,
but
there's
not
no
ideal.
way. Yeah, he can't land in the East next to me in Boston. But you can certainly have a wink, wink, nudge, nudge off the books that says, hey, I'm going to give you this guy, but you're not trading him back to Boston, right? Or Philly, right? Or anybody that's going to get in my way getting to the NBA Finals. And somehow Milwaukee didn't do that. But that's a whole different story. But the beauty of player empowerment in the NBA is, guys, you can essentially dictate who they hire, who they trade for, whether or not you have them on eggshells because you might ask to get traded if you're Giannis. And then you can never take responsibility for any of it. You can say,
Right.
I had nothing to do with it.
Well, that's the beauty of Giannis, and now I love that guy. That's just not. It's not possible because if Giannis loved Adrian Griffin, he'd still be the coach.
He invited him to his wedding, though.
No, it's not. Again, it's not even that I'm disputing that he may like him personally.
Right.
I'm not saying that he may not be like that guy's a great guy, but there was something I'm sure Giannis didn't like professionally. Because we, like you said, player empowerment. There's no one more powerful in the NBA than Giannis in Milwaukee. I would say he's more powerful than LeBron. I would say he's more powerful than Luka and Tatum and Embiid because of the nature of Milwaukee as a market. The fact that he won and then he resigned and he's sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is the king of the county.
Dude, I guarantee you he went to ownership and said, I don't believe that this guy can get us over the finish line. He had a rant earlier in the season where he claimed the trainer had to wash the clothes better, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. But I guarantee you, if he is like MJ Real Deal, that freak competitor that you talked about the other day, Hayes, he got a vibe and a sense that what was going on was not going to be good enough. Maybe he understands the team probably isn't good enough, but he just said, with this coaching, we can't do it. And he probably had a conversation with some. How else would something like that go down?
Yeah.
Do you think the owner sitting in a luxury box at 30-13 would say, I got to guess that coach?
No, I don't think the owner would. I mean, there's a chance the GM, again, is surveilling the situation. What are the practice habits? Well, there's a number of different things that could be happening behind the scenes. I don't know, but 30-13 speaks for itself. And player empowerment speaks for itself. Giannis, again, as I just stated, I think is the most powerful person in the NBA in terms of one individual player on an individual team. And I have no question.
LeBron's probably right up there.
Yeah, but I feel like LeBron, like the Lakers aren't that good. Of course he is. I mean, LeBron's fine. Maybe LeBron's one and Giannis is two, but Giannis is very high on the list in terms of a guy. Put it this way: if he calls the owner's calling him right back, or answering the call. He's not flushing it. Where that's not going to apply to other players in the NBA. But it's the nature of coaching. I mean, we've mentioned the NFL, we've mentioned the NBA. Look what's happening in the NHL. Like, Todd McClellan is freaking out in L.A. Rick Tocchet's calling out Elias Pettersson 2 weeks ago. The guy was the hottest player in the NHL. And now Rick's not that happy with things. Sheldon Keefe is blowing a gasket behind the bench seemingly every single game. It's the nature of coaching, I guess, in pro sports that it has become custom to move on. Like, the rarity now in pro sports is to remain loyal to a guy.
Yeah.
Like the Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh scenario or the Sean McDermott in Buffalo scenario. Like, that's almost the exception of the rule, that even though you didn't reach the top, and there's a lot of fans out there and a lot of media that are circling the wagons here and maybe poking holes at what you're about and how you're performing, this ownership group is going to stick with you. And I guess Sheldon Keefe might apply there. He's not as long-standing, clearly, as Tomlin. Tomlin's won a Super Bowl. Obviously, Keefe has not done that here. But by no means does it seem as if, Shanahan and Tree Living and company are really evaluating Keefe in a way that would suggest they're on the verge of moving from him. Yet last night, the Leafs, that first period was horrendous.
Oh.
Like, that's as caved in as I can recall them being all year. Like, it was wild to watch.
Dude, that was in the hockey. I'm going to be positive because I always believe a win is a win and a win.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to look up getting caved in hockey, that first period will play on an audio or visual book.
Yes.
Because that's what that was. It was like you get the old first game back after a trip out west, but that's usually when you get back Sunday and you play Tuesday. They had the couple days, and it's like, guys, come on out there. That was as bad as they looked, and let's be honest, their goaltender bailed their asses out. Like, he was unbelievable. He made that 2-on-0 save. He made a bunch of saves. The crowd was chanting his name. And without that performance by him, that game is 5-1.
Yeah.
Without a question.
It was an awesome story. It was an awesome scene last night. Like, the Samsonov story is, you talk about positive. It has the chance to be incredibly positive. I think a true rallying cry around the team, around the fan base, around the city, because, we all witnessed where he was. Like, it was untenable a month and a half ago. You couldn't play him. They put him on waivers. Yes. He was on waivers.
Nobody wanted him.
31 teams said, we're not touching that.
No.
It's so radioactive, we can't even go close to it. And then, to the Leafs' credit and to Samsonov's credit, they kept telling the public, like, we've got a plan for him. We've got some plan, and he's gonna kind of disappear here for 2 weeks. And when he resurfaces, we're going to find a rhythm for him to get into. The first 2 games he played, Detroit and Seattle, were both the second part of a back-to-back. It was still Martin Jones' net at that point. But he played really well against Seattle. He deserved to play last night, and he deserves to play Saturday, and I believe he will.
Oh,
he has to play Saturday. But for him to stand on his head the way he did last night, to get them through the first period, and then the Leafs settled in. The Leafs were better in the second and third period. For him to make the stops he did, the crowd to react the way he did. We saw the scene, they hand the belt out after every game, and he had it from the Seattle game, and he gave it to Matthews, and Matthews gave it right back to him. And that's a cool scene. And it's just, I felt for the guy. I really did. I felt for what he was going through and how bad it was. And it's a team sport, as we know. And when you're the one that's like everyone's circling, like, what's that guy going to do? It's a very lonely place to be. It's a very isolating position to be in. And I'm not suggesting he's completely dug himself out of it. I don't think anyone should be at that point.
No.
You need to see at least another couple of weeks of him exuding confidence and playing well. He's not going to be perfect every single night. But that was a really cool game, a really cool story, and good for Samsonov because he responded last night.
Well, speaking of coaching, like, I looked at that game last night and thought back to the way Rick Bowness approached their exit from the playoffs last year in the first round. And the Jets, of course, got run in 5 games by the Golden Knights in the first round.
That presser, Dave, that was a tough thing to come back from for everybody.
That's what I'm saying.
We said yesterday they might have had to, shore things up over a coffee over those comments.
Like, what were the odds? Like, if when you watch that presser and him saying he was disgusted that there was no pushback and their best players were way better than our best players, he just eviscerated his roster. And you're thinking, like, hey, this guy's got to either get fired or they got to trade everybody. But they're not going to be a good team anytime soon.
Maybe it was the best thing that ever happened because he set the standard and said, if you guys want to embarrass yourself, I'm not going anywhere. I'm almost 70 years old, or he is 70 years old. And if you come back here, don't think anything's going to be different. Some personnel left, and they brought some different players in. They re-signed 2 of their cornerstone pieces there, and they understood that the coach isn't going anywhere on their behalf. So it's like, that's the standard, and you better adhere to it, or you're going to have a problem yourself. And it's like they've just taken off from there.
Well, exactly.
And it's, speaking of a coach blowing a gasket, I've never seen Keefe sit those guys, let alone for 1 power play, but for 2 power plays. They panned them on the bench, and I could see Marner and Matthews looking at each other like, is this guy serious? He's doing it for his 2nd power play. But what I don't understand about that is I'm totally fine with some accountability because their power play, it's so predictable and it stunk the joint out the last little while. And their record on the PP shows that. But what I don't understand is it's time to hurt somebody's feelings and sit one of their asses on the bench and put different personnel out there. Put Austin Matthews, and if it's Marner or Nylander, but maybe John Tavares, who hasn't got points in 9 games or something, needs to just sit one out and try something different. Like, it's one thing to sit them on the bench, but don't throw them all back out. Try something different. Put Matthew Nyes in John Tavares' spot, or Max Domi, or Bertuzzi when he comes back. Like, it's almost like it's their power play, and they're owed the full 2 minutes, and he won't change it. I love you sitting them on the bench, but it's time to go with a different unit. Like, the joke's over, man.
I
Enough's
agree.
enough.
Yeah, listen, special teams, for a veteran team to have special teams that are in disarray the way that they have been is not... It's inexcusable. Like, it's got to be rectified. They
and you could put a spark under somebody's ass because I was a power play guy, and it bothered me like hell when Paul Maurice would say, first unit was so-and-so on that end of the ice, and then these guys, and when you're on the second unit, you got to go down there, and you're like, I got to chop it around with these schmoes, and I'm never going to get on the power play with these guys, and it sucks, and it's embarrassing, and it puts it puts you under the gun. You want to show the coach that you want to go back to the unit you belong in, or the one you think you belong in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Change it up a little bit.
Here's the issue, and I totally agree with you. And I'd like to believe that Keefe and Trey Living would have this conversation, because Trey Living, when he first got here, one of the first things he tried to expel was Core 4. It's not Core 4 anymore.
Don't tell me that he's the captain and he makes $11 million and he deserves to go on the first power play. But what I'm saying is, who are you going to pick? Because the guy historically that got picked just got $11.5 million for 8 years. Not going to be him. Not going to be Willie.
No.
Not going to be Austin. So who are you going to pick?
Matthews is going to get 70 goals. He's not even a part of this conversation.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, and Willie's going to end up with 100 and whatever points, right? So, and I'm saying is, I agree with your assessment, but then it's got to be one of Marner or Tavares. And when that happens, then Keefe is going to have to answer for it. Yeah. And I'm not even saying answer for it from the media.
Why does he have to answer for it when another coach around the league can take Jonathan Huberdeau and just sit him on the bench for a third period? He doesn't have to answer for squat.
Well, then why hasn't it happened? Why has it never happened? Because why are they so immune from doing it? It's an existential question.
I think it's because their power play has always found a way out of a funk, and they keep it above water where it's like, okay, coach, you can keep us together. We've got this back on track. But I think their power play's been terrible.
It's been awful. I agree with you. But
and that stupid drop pass, it's the one thing that bothers me so much, and it bothers me because it looks so stupid, but it also works a lot of the time.
It works.
But there's sometimes it's like, how about just a soft chip and go show some urgency and go get the puck back? But it's like we have to do the drop pass, and we have to give it to Marner and Matthews through the neutral zone. Sometimes just go throw it in there and go get it and fight for it and get it back and set up.
Again, the power play illuminates the core 4, the core 5, because Riley's on it too. Like they literally, it's just like the 5 guys who got paid and are the highest paid guys and are, represent our identity. They're out there. And if you're going to break that up, I think it'd be very beneficial. I think it'd be quite symbolic that if Trey Living, again, this is one of the first things he said, we got to get away from core 4. It's not core 4, it's make.
Okay, then it's very easy what you do with these players, Hayes. You sit them all in a room and you show them the standings and say, guys, that's where we're at right now.
I don't think you have to explain anything.
We don't have the luxury of putting all of you guys out in the power play because we're fighting for our lives right now to make the playoffs. And if we don't get a heater, excuse me, and we haven't had that segment where we really know what we're about yet. The segment that Winnipeg's had, that Vegas had early on. LA's in one right now, but they haven't shown it. Yeah. They haven't shown a segment where it's like, this is what we got when we're all firing on all cylinders. I don't think the coach knows what they are either, because he hasn't seen that, where it's like 10 games of, man, this team's real deal. And if they play like this in the playoffs, they could be a handful. Like, can you guys remember a segment like that during the year?
No, it hasn't happened.
It's the unknown.
It hasn't happened this year. You're right. They haven't had a really dominant stretch where you're like, wow, they are among the best teams in the league. And that's why it's interesting having Winnipeg in this back-to-back set, this home-and-home set. You're going to go play them Saturday night in Winnipeg because, it's like these – they're the anti-Leafs, right? The Leafs are big market. These guys are small market. The Leafs have spent more on 4 guys than the Jets have spent on 4+ lines. And that's not hyperbole. It's $40 million for 4 guys. You add up the Jets' 13 forwards, they're at $37 million. And yet the Jets have kind of set this standard of how to play conscientious, defense first, and they're the best defensive team in the league. And now their special teams stink too. They're brutal on the power play. They're brutal on the penalty kill. That may be a problem. But you're right. And then they got a coach that said our elite players were not elite players. And you remember what happened when Sheldon Keefe said that last season. He had to walk that back. Rick Bowness didn't walk it back as far as I know.
Well, no, I don't recall him doing that either. And again, it speaks to the way, the identity of the team is the top 5 players. And that's the catch-22. I'm sure, to be fair to Keefe, he understands if this team's going to go anywhere, he needs them all to be on the same page.
Right.
He needs them all playing at a very high level. So it is, I think that's the conundrum he's dealt with since he's been here. And, again, let's play the Rick Tocchet clip last night. Elias Pettersson has been unbelievable this year. And he had a 2 or 3 week stretch recently where he was probably the hottest player in the league or real close to it.
It was on the road trip they just went on.
Yeah. He was a rock star every single night. And here's what Rick Tocchet had to say about Pettersson last night.
Did it look to you like maybe Petey was a little off tonight?
Yeah. I haven't liked his game in the last 3 or 4 games. We got to get him going.
What in particular do you think he needs to do more?
I think he's got to skate. He's got to start skating a little bit. I think he's, I think he's good with the moves sometimes, but I think when you have speed and make those moves, that's when he's at his best. So yeah, we got to, we'll get him going.
Yeah. I love that comment.
That?
It's great.
It's just accountability. It's like, it's not because he's been so good in the first whatever amount of games that he doesn't have criticism. He can't be criticized. It's just being accountable. He knows what he's capable of, and he's got to be better. Got to move his feet more. Doesn't have pace to his game. And he did not care that heater that he was on in that East Coast trip. Didn't care because that's gone.
Right.
It's gone.
And he's up for a contract at the end of the year, and that doesn't matter. Rick Tocchet doesn't care about that.
Who cares?
You're in it to win it right now, and I like his confidence at the end because he's right. They'll get him going. Of course they will. He's Elias Pettersson. Of course he's going to get going. But it doesn't have to be, some front that it's uber positive when everyone understands that it's not.
And I would bet money that you're going to talk to, like if the camera gets in front of Pettersson today at some point, he's not going to be outraged at Rick Tocchet's comments.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like where it's like, oh, I'm not speaking about that.
I haven't seen him or I haven't heard from, Vancouver on whether or not he's approached it or not, but I hear you. I mean, listen, there's a lot of volatility in the league right now. Like the Drew Doughty stuff after the game. Do we have the Doughty stuff? We should play that here because this is reminiscent of Devon Taves a month ago.
Yeah.
Taves did the same thing when Colorado lost to Chicago. He went crazy and was basically said what Doughty said last night. Here's what Drew Doughty had to say after the Kings blew another game last night.
I think we got guys in this room who are too worried about themselves and worried about their points and worried about stuff like that. We get a 3-1 lead tonight, and guys start thinking it's a cookie night, and we stop playing the way we know how to play, have an awful second period, and then aren't much better in the third. It's about the team. It's not about yourself, and a lot of guys on this team need to realize that.
Oh man, cookie night.
Yeah,
that one. I mean, that's a pretty direct shot. Like I'm not going to speculate on who he's talking about.
Really? You're not?
I don't know. We talked about Rick Bowness's comments after the series last year, and now, Drew Doughty saying what he's saying. But
guys, at the end of the day, in pro sports nowadays, everyone's entitled to these long-term contracts with big-time money. And if they decide they're not in it to win it and they just want to play for themselves and they want to decide when they want to show up and play, you're in big-time trouble.
That's right.
That is the bottom line.
Yep. You need the only way a team can succeed is if you have players that are self-motivated, that are freaks, and all they want to do is win and compete. That's the thing. Like talent is important, obviously. Skill set is important, pace, health, all that kind of stuff. But the true denominator, the true separator, is who is freakishly competitive.
Yes. And when you think about it, when you've got all the money and the contract, what the hell else left? What's left?
Well, that's it. Self-motivation.
Yeah.
That's it.
You've been paid for individual statistics already. There's only one thing left to do is try to win. You're secure. You got tons of bank. Try to win. That's all you got to do. But
yeah. It's funny. It's funny, Doug. I was talking to Alexander Dagla. There's a documentary coming about him this week. Of course, number 1 overall pick in '93, and fell way short of expectation. Obviously, one of the great draft busts of all time. But he was saying to that point, Dog, he was, now he's 48 years old. He's got a wife and 3 kids. He's looking back with the wisdom of a guy who's lived and knows what it's like to make mistakes and move on. And he made the point that once he got to the league, he couldn't reset his goals. He kind of climbed Everest. He'd made all this money. He'd paid off his parents' mortgage. He'd kind of reached all his goals, and he just didn't know how to sort of reset them. He didn't really know how to find another kind of challenge for himself. Now, you could call that softness or weakness or whatever you want to call it, but that's just the way it was for him, and he didn't really find anybody to connect with it could kind of guide him in that direction, O-Doc. So I don't know. There's probably guys that you played with that were like that, O-Doc, don't you think?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you play for 10 or 12 years, you're going to get all kinds, Dave. But the rarity is when you invest in the salary cap to the 5 to 7 guys that you want to deal out the dough to, if they're not what Hayes just mentioned, mega competitive and care about winning, you're basically screwed.
Yeah, and
you're basically screwed. Or you just won't win, and it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's something to, like, Taves saying what he said, Doughty saying what he's saying, like policing the room. Like Doughty will this inspire guys? I often wonder, does it put a spotlight on Doughty? Does it put a spotlight on Taves? Like, how are you playing? I'm not watching the Kings play every night. Is Doughty playing a perfect game? I'm sure there's some guys that are looking around being like, all right, let's see what you've got every single night.
Well, I know he'll be good the next game.
I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, because he made the comments. It's just like Devin Tays. The first person they're going to check off after those comments is themselves, because you can't say that and then go out and play like a donkey.
Yeah.
Because they just don't operate like that.
And you can say a lot of that stuff when you got cup rings, right?
Well, exactly, and both do.
And both do, and Doughty, has been around
He's
a lot
got
for
it
a long
all,
time.
Dave. He's got Norris's
Yeah.
Olympics, all of it, and he can make those comments. And you wonder if it's a shot at whoever decided to bring the players in that he can't stand. Same as what happened in Denver, where they brought in Johansson and they brought in Drouin, and maybe it's a shot like it's very rare when a player says, we've got guys on this team, and they're talking about new players because it's new guys that are on their own program. So you wonder if it's like a backhanded shot, like, thanks a lot for bringing these guys in.
I'll tell you what, the Jets they're enjoying the fruits of the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade.
How could you not?
Yeah.
Like, Velarde didn't even play last night.
Yeah,
but
he's been one of the best guys.
Velarde's been outstanding. And Iafallo's, like, he's a perfect depth player. He can play with pace. He's got some piss and vinegar. He'll score some goals. And, overall, it's just a different vibe in Winnipeg. They're playing very well. That was impressive. They were very impressive last night. And it's not going to get easier Saturday night because got to believe Hellebuck will be playing, and you're going into their building. It's going to be a tough one for the Leafs. So we'll continue to look ahead to that. But, it's interesting times in the NHL. Very interesting times in the NHL. So we got Pierre LeBrun coming up, our TSN Hockey Insider, just after 5 o'clock. Herm Edwards coming up on Jim Harbaugh taking the gig in L.A. where the Chargers will start looking ahead to the 2 championship games this weekend with Herm as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up in about a half an hour. Big night at the Bell Center tonight. Patrick Waugh making his return behind the bench for the Islanders. It will be electric at the Bell Center tonight.
That'll be a good one. Patrick Waugh, who's said the other day, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about us. It's
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. He's probably rehearsing in front of the mirror, like walking out onto the bench at the Bell Center. Does he give a wave? Like, do you think don't you have to acknowledge him every time he's in a building?
He's royalty.
How do you not? He's
Numbers
Patrick
in the rafters.
Waugh.
I mean, come on.
I don't think he's going to wave. He's got a show. I'll tell you what will fire the boys up, though, is the big chalkboard with the hockey rink on it, and he walks up to it and just puts $5,000 cash to the guy that scores the game-winning goal and walks out. Mm-hmm. That's how you fire a team up.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Yes, so do I.
I can't imagine they stay in Montreal tonight. Maybe Doogie, see if the Islanders
that would be written underneath. The bird will stay put.
Yes. Thursday night, you get a win and you stay in Montreal.
You want to talk about a bench clearing brawl to start a game? That's what will start it. If you just say the bird will stay put.
Yeah. Boys will be jacked. So, that'll be electric tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing that because listen, it's early in his tenure down there, but he is a legend. He's Patrick Waugh. He's back at the Bell Center, saying the right things, doing the right things. The Islanders, I don't think they're in a cup window right now, but I'm sure you bring in a guy like Patrick Waugh, and you expect that throughout his tenure, you will be knocking on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and they've got the goalie down there.
Hey, man, Lou since he left the Leafs has found a way to win some playoff series, if not a cup. But Islanders have done some stuff.
Yeah. Noah Dobson's having an unbelievable season. They got pieces. Like they definitely have pieces down there.
And he was brought in there to create some energy because Lou just didn't like what he was seeing. When Patrick Waugh comes in, he's a high energy guy, play with passion, all that. He's there to shake it up.
Absolutely. And again, it'll be buzzing at the Bell Center tonight. That'll be a fun game. TSN 1050 wants you to be our unofficial correspondent at the grittiest sports party of the year. Call us right now at 416-870-1050, 416-870-1050. The first caller through with the correct keyword announced this morning on First Up wins a $100 Golf Town gift card and qualifies for the grand prize, which will include a trip for two to Scottsdale, Arizona, 4-night hotel stay, 2 tickets to the closing weekend of the Waste Management Open, an additional $1,000 Golf Town gift card, a custom full bag fitting at Golf Town Studio X, and $500 cash to spend on the trip. Full details available at tsn1050.ca. Doesn't sound like your boy Adrian Maronk will be at the Waste Management. I guess Adrian Maronk is taking his 400-yard drives to the LIV Tour, but I saw that DeChambeau, I guess, was quoted today or recently saying that the deal is, like, done, basically. Like, it's coming. The PGA, LIV, I guess Monahan and the head of the PIF or whatever have been meeting in New York for a couple of days, and Monahan was in Saudi Arabia recently, so...
Well, they're still going to have to figure out a guy. Whatever happens, they're going to have to figure out a way... I don't know if it's to compensate or to make happy Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Max Homa, and Tony Finau for staying loyal to the PGA Tour, because life's not fair and sometimes you just have to move on and deal with things. But these guys all leave for hundreds of millions and the other guys stay loyal to the PGA Tour, and then all of a sudden it's just your one big tour and everyone's supposed to be happy. I don't know how that's going to go down.
Well, and I also don't understand how you come to an agreement that is possibly going to see, like, not an amalgamation of the tours, but how does John Rahm getting $600 million? He hasn't even played on LIV, and there's going to be some deal before it even happens. Like, what was the point of getting Rahm? I mean, we'll have to wait to see the details. Again, I don't know what, the devil could be in the details. I don't know what this is going to look like.
Yeah, it will be. The devil will be in the details. And look, you can talk to agents and PGA Tour players, and nobody has any idea how this is all going to work. There just doesn't seem like a logical route to make everybody happy.
No, there will be people pissed off.
Aggrieved parties.
Yes, there will be people sour. There's no question about that. But, and your boy Nicky Dunlap, he's going pro. He'll be at Pebble next week.
He is. And the people that are going to be sour, Hayes, are the Maverick McNeelys of the world who are just like, what tournament am I supposed to play in, and how do I make a living playing golf?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be about the haves, and the have-nots are going to be like, are we just one massive Corn Ferry Tour? Because if those big dogs aren't at Pebble Beach or they're not at the Waste Management, it's like, who the hell's going to go out there and watch that? Who's going to put it on TV? And that's what has to be sorted out.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're figuring that out right now, but I guess we'll see. When we have more information on that, we'll get to it. Pierre LeBrun coming up in about 25 minutes. Herm Edwards later this afternoon. I was on Jay last night, and I made some comments about what I'd like to see happen with Sidney Crosby in his future. And those clips made their way to Pittsburgh because I have been absolutely taking left and right haymakers online for the last 12 to 16 hours.
Can I hear it?
Well,
what did you say?
I guess we can get it. I was pleading my case.
I want
to
hear it because it would be better if I heard you live, because you would have the piss and vinegar and you would say it with conviction. I don't like hearing you regurgitate it.
Okay. Why don't we get that, JP? We can come back and revisit that. All right. I'll play it for you. I'm intrigued by your take.
I know, because I haven't seen it yet, so I would love to hear it and react.
All right. We will play that. JP, Doogie, Joe from the Bridge, you guys will get on that. We'll play that a little bit later this hour, because I am curious how you guys would respond to that. But yeah, it's interesting times here in the NHL, Dave.
It really is.
But so more on obviously Leafs-Jets last night, Leafs-Jets on Saturday night. I saw the announcement today too. The PWHL, Toronto-Montreal playing at Scotiabank, February 16th. Like, that feels like a pretty monumental moment, right? That they're going to get the PWHL into Scotiabank Arena. Tickets are going to go on sale. I think they'll sell out. I think they'll sell out pretty quickly. And I'm sure they're hoping that happens. Like, the quicker it goes, the easier the press release comes that it's sold out immediately. And then you start talking about playing in buildings like that more in the future. Like there's only so many dates available. You can't just, the Leafs and the Raptors and concerts. It's pre-booked for a long time. But I like this idea of promoting it around the All-Star game, which is going to obviously take place next week. Tickets go on sale, I believe, on February 1st. You get a packed barn, you start establishing that type of rivalry and that type of atmosphere, that can be massive for the PWHL.
It could be huge.
I'll tell you what, get the Prime Minister in there clapping.
Well,
he was clapping last night like it was the horniest clap I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know where he went to school and learned how to clap the way he was clapping at that Ottawa game last night, but
look at this. Watch how horny he gets right there. He's like, he goes into play it again.
When I saw that,
went into hyper speed clapping.
When I saw that, I was convinced that was doctored. I'm like, that cannot be a real clap, because I think he was there with his children. I think he was there with his son and his daughter, and I believe that's his daughter beside him. That even she looked up and was like, "What are you doing?"
It's the horniest clap of all time. He can't get the claps going fast enough.
Like, was he trying to start a new? Like that's almost like a Go Leafs Go chant. Like, was he trying to get people to really rapidly clap?
Daughter looks terrified.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was I just saw it and I'm like, is that like some kind of sped up television that I saw that guy on?
Yeah.
He was clapping his ass off and loving it.
Yes, he really was. It was a completely unacceptable clapping. I mean, you can't clap like that in public.
Well, he just did.
I understand that, but that's something that's coming up on the campaign trail. I'm sorry if I'm
Look at the look to the right. Was that his daughter?
I believe that's his daughter.
Hang on a second here with that.
She's picking up on shrapnel. Like there's a windmill coming out of his hands. Yeah. His daughter's like, "What are you thinking right now? Do you realize that you're the Prime Minister? We're at a massive event here. There's cameras everywhere, and this is going viral."
Oh yeah.
Like that was almost like, I think she's young enough, probably savvy with social media. That may have been the first moment where she's like, this is viral. It's going viral.
Yes.
That clapping routine is 100% going viral around the world. And I must have watched that 15 times this morning. And my initial reaction, honestly, it was like when you speed up a podcast, like you can put it on 2 times the speed, 3 times the speed.
He got after it.
He really did.
His daughter was so grossed out.
He was really, really excited to clap.
She's like, night. What the hell is your deal?
Yeah, it's a really significant clap. Anyway, Pierre LeBrun coming up in 15 minutes. We'll get to my Sid take last night on JNSC. And you can respond, Dave. You can have a response as well. Herm Edwards still to come as well on Jim Harbaugh getting the job out in L.A. with the Chargers. What else happens with Belichick and other big names throughout the NFL? Start looking ahead to the AFC and the NFC Championship game as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider, in about 20 minutes on Samsonov's game last night. Matthews gets to 39 goals. Like, he didn't have it last night. I didn't think really. Robertson played really well. Credit to Nick Robertson. Credit to Sheldon Keefe getting him on the ice in overtime. He deserved that shift, that he made something happen. But even on a night like that where it's slow and there's not a lot of chances, there's Matthews. He pots the OT winner. He's up to 39. It's incredible. Nathan McKinnon, what a night he had last night.
Second 4-goal game of the year, 5 points total.
Yeah. And
it was like he just said, Kucherov, okay, you want to do that? I'll do this.
Exactly. It was Kucherov the night before had a hat trick and 4 points, and McKinnon the next night said, all right, I'll score 4 and have 5 points. How do you feel about that? It's incredible what those two are doing. And it's just every single night. Matthews every single night. Sam Reinhart scored again last night.
Where are those two, Hayes, like as far as points? I know like a month ago they were like 10 or 15 ahead of McDavid. Are they still that?
Oh, no, they're more than 20 now, dude.
Oh, they're more than 20 ahead of McDavid.
McDavid's got 60, and McKinnon's got 82, and Kucherov's got 80. So Kucherov's 20 up on him, and McKinnon's 22 up on him.
On the fly, Jerry's percentage that McDavid catches them.
25%.
I say 85.
Nah, I'm even lower because you know what? I think the story that's going to start coming out more and the people are going to start focusing on more is McDavid's playing a different way now. Like, he's committed to playing defensive hockey now. He's read the Scotty Bowman book and the Steve Eisman speech from the Detroit and said, I don't need to lead the league in scoring anymore. I got to win a freaking cup, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that.
That's music to my ears.
I love hearing that.
Dave, that's music. That's the greatest thing I've heard on this show, especially sitting beside that guy. Like, that's the greatest thing I've heard all year long.
Well, let me interject here because, he's you know what he's doing? He's playing like Sidney Crosby.
Yes.
That's what he's doing. He's playing like Sidney Crosby. And admittedly, this is one of the most self-serving thing we've ever done on the show. We're playing a clip that one of us said on another show.
No, it's a new segment we're going to do. This segment's called "What Did You Think About What Hayes Said on Jay?"
All right, so I was on with Jay last night. Shout out to Jay, JNSC, Harvey's, great sponsor. And this is what I had to say about Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. I am pleading, and I want to thank you. I want to thank your staff. I want to thank Harvey's for giving me this opportunity. Get Sidney Crosby out of Pittsburgh. Follow in the footsteps of Tom Brady. He's into his 19th season down there in Pittsburgh. He will always be remembered as a Penguin. It's him and Mario Lemieux, the two greatest Penguins of all time. He's given everything he possibly could to that franchise. That franchise is no longer repaying him. And I know he's loyal. I know he's still playing with Gino and Letang, and they've obviously got Carlson there, and you mentioned Gensel and others. But he's still one of the 10 or 12 best players in the world. You referenced to Jay. He's still on pace for 50 goals. He's only done that once in his career. He hasn't done that in 14 years. This guy is in the top 10. He's top 10 for the Hart right now. Again, like I said, top 10 player in the world. I think he's got 3 or 4 years left in his career. And I want to see him chase Stanley Cups. I believe he's already a locked top 10 player of all time. I think he can make a solid case for being top 5. And I think if he follows in the footsteps of Brady, goes somewhere else, wins a cup, is competitive, playing on a relative teams in terms of playoff performances, that is going to make the case for him to get into the top 5 all time. Maybe he's a Mount Rushmore guy. Maybe he's one of the top 4. And I'd love to see it. I hate the idea of him just fading away the rest of his career on a team in Pittsburgh that is not competitive this year. So it goes on and on and on, but that's my case. Get him out. Get him out of Pittsburgh.
Dude, I think those are fantastic. Like, it pains me to compliment you, but I think it's really well said. And how can you argue against that? Unless Sid says, I'm a Penguin forever. I don't care if we have 5 wins all year long. I'm staying a Penguin. But the one thing that never comes up, and it's kind of weird with all these guys making all this money, is what the hell is his contract? His contract's never up. What did he sign, a 15-year deal at 8.7?
He did. It was like a 10 or 12-year deal at $8.7 million. Yeah. And he's up after next year. But I can tell you who hates that is Penguins fans. Like I said, my DMs on Instagram, Twitter, it's just people going nuts.
Well,
and I understand
they're not
that.
happy about it, and it's denial. It's denial that they don't like admitting.
Right. And listen, I'm not predicting it's going to happen, and I'm not, here. I don't know I think Sid is loyal. I think in an ideal world, Sid would love to retire a Pittsburgh Penguin, but I think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to keep going south in Pitt.
Of course, they're only getting older.
Exactly.
Man.
And if you watch them play, he is still incredibly tenacious.
Oh, yeah.
He's on top of it. He's scoring goals. He's a stud. Later in that clip, though, I suggested one team. And again, I'm not an insider. I'm not saying this can't happen. I'm not saying that he's going to wave.
Let me guess. I'm going to guess. You said the Montreal Canadiens.
No, I said the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins.
Okay.
It's exactly what they need. A number 1 center. He goes there. They're the best team in the East, in my opinion. They're going to be a great team for the next 3 or 4 years.
They're the best team in the East right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Again, this is all pie in the sky stuff.
Yeah.
But could you imagine Sid goes to Boston, teams up with his boy. Marchand's from Halifax. He's from Cole Harbor. I mean, it's exactly what I'm talking about. An original
that's fantastic.
6 team.
It's fantastic chat, but the one thing you have to figure or factor in is that before that Sidney Crosby got to Pittsburgh, they almost boarded up the igloo and said, we're folding up shop.
I hear you.
So what are the ramifications of 87 leaving town? Is it going to revert back to that, or have they totally rebuilt things with the new building? Because Geno Malkin's no kid anymore. Neither's Letang. It's like this thing's going to blow up in their faces. How are they going to retool this? It seems like the retool with Sid, and it should have been just Sid and Letang and not Gino. They bought into Gino saying I'm leaving, and they should have said, okay, there's the door. Mm-hmm. But they had to lock him in for 3 years, and I don't know. Maybe they got a mess on their hands. But the biggest question is, what happens when 87, if he leaves, what would possibly happen to the organization?
Yeah, exactly, Doug. And let's face it, guys. Like I like what you're coming from here. As a hockey lover, I would love to see it. I want to see Sidney Crosby be, impactful. I want to see him play in the Olympics in 2026 because we haven't seen that in so long. But this guy's made his bed, and he was one of the guys. He was lobbying the organization to get Letang that long-term deal that's keeping him in Pittsburgh through 2028. He was lobbying to keep the band together and keep Malkin around.
Of course he was.
So it would be a little disingenuous, in my opinion, for him to suddenly say, by the way, my deal's expiring in 2025, get me the hell out.
Right. Again, I'm not predicting it will happen. I'm saying I want to see it because I honestly think that he has been undervalued now for too many years. I think he's become kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit. It's all McDavid and Matthews and Patterson and McCarr. And this guy is the LeBron equivalent. He's the Brady equivalent or close to it in terms of this generation, right? And Ovi's going to get his flowers because he's chasing Gretzky and doing what he's doing. Sid is still a top 10 player in the world and should be relevant. Like it should be
helping a team try to win a cup.
Absolutely. And that's what I'd love to see. And obviously there's a professional angle to this. The content would be incredible. Put him back at the forefront. He leaves. He goes somewhere else. Watching him in a different uniform, it'd be incredible.
The only way it happens if he goes to the team and says, I'm done and thank you very much. Please trade me. That's the only way that goes down.
Yep.
No, to your point, like it is amazing. Like you look at the 5-on-5 offense this year. McDavid and Matthews have 32 points at 5-on-5. Crosby has 31.
Right.
At age 36.
Exactly.
Think about that.
27 goals. It's incredible how good he's playing. All right, hour 2 coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.